What's going on, everybody? I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller, here with another unboxing and review for Micro Brand Monday. Now, guys, we're going to do a little bit of a recap at the beginning of this episode. So many of my longtime viewers will recall a Chinese company called Star King. Now, I've done 2 Star King reviews on this channel. The first one went swimmingly, and I was actually very, very impressed because the watch was well under $100, and I mean well under $100 for a sapphire crystal and for an automatic movement with some pretty nice finishing all around. Now, that gave me high hopes for the second review, and the second review didn't go so well. The watch had a few issues, so let's take a look at the first one. The one thing that's captivating me right now is this handset. I mean, look at that. And you can see, pretty nice watch. Now let's take a look at what happened during the second review. Would I recommend this watch? No. Did I have high hopes? Absolutely. The other Star King, I would recommend. This one, huge bummer. Don't buy it. So, you know, you can't really blame me for kind of losing hope, maybe being a bit disappointed, maybe writing off Star King after that second review. But Star King, months later, came back to me, January 2021, and told me, you know what, we're gonna make it right. We want you to take a look at 2 more of our watches, and there's not going to be any issues, and we're very excited for you to see that we've, you know, cleaned up our act and there's not going to be any problems with these watches. So I have very high hopes. Hopefully Star King really did fix the kinks, and we're going to take a look at 2 more watches from this company, and they actually went as far to kind of put their money where their mouth is, and they are sponsoring this review. So let's hope that these are some pristine watches from Star King. So without further ado, let's go ahead and tell the time. It is 12:36 p.m. Let's get down to business. All right, guys, here we go. We actually have 2 packages from them today, and let's just cut into them using my Gerber flat iron. Alrighty, that was simple enough. Okay, we got some padding there. Let's clean this up. All right, guys, so we have 2 Star King watch boxes here, and these are pretty familiar as far as the packaging goes, because again, if you've seen my other reviews, this is exactly how they were packaged. We have some kind of grained cardboard with some kind of yellow gold going on here. Very nice. Now, here's where it gets kind of tricky. They are a Chinese watchmaker, and when I was communicating with them, they emailed me, they wrote to me via Instagram. There was a bit of a language barrier, okay? I'm gonna be honest. When I asked for further information about the watches they were sending me, I asked for the spec sheet, I asked for even the reference numbers. They didn't really follow through sending me any of that information. They sent me links. They were like shopping links to kind of advertise for them in the description of my YouTube video when I post it. So I think they're very interested in selling these watches. They're not as interested giving their reviewers more information about these watches, but I'm going to try to figure it out during the review. When I look at these labels here on the back, it doesn't give me any further information. These like serial numbers, these barcodes, it doesn't tell us which watches they are. And then here it says Star King watch, automatic casual style fashion, new made in China. And then here it says Star King top brand, LU-HES scratch proof male. New made in China. So yeah, we're gonna try to figure this out. I'm more interested in learning if these actually function properly and if they were as impressive as the first ever Star King that we reviewed. So yeah, let's take a look. All right. Let's see. Oh, okay. Unbox this one upside down. So, okay, there might be some more information here. Well, we will actually take a look at this manual for the first time ever on this channel. So let's flip this over so that this one is not upside down when we unbox it. All right, they look similar. This one seems to have a date. This one seems to simply have a date. So let's take a look at the similarities and the differences, and again, we'll look at the manuals on both and see if it actually gives us any spec information. Okay, so here's the manual for this watch on the left. It just tells us kind of how to set the time and adjust the clasp. The interesting thing though is that this clasp is not even the clasp that's on that watch. And then one thing that I found very funny, let's zoom in here and get you in focus. It tells you like, okay, to my dear Amazon customer, yada, yada, yada. Here it says negative feedback and return will not solve problem, but we can. If you don't like our watch or have any problem, please contact me and message. I will help you until you are happy. Happy buying experience ranks first in our shop. So they're very, very concerned about their, I suppose, reviews and feedback on their Amazon store. So, I mean, again, it kind of harkens back to when I requested information about these watches. They just gave me a bunch of like Amazon links for their various Amazon products. So yeah, again, bit of a language barrier. Maybe they were a bit stubborn on their part. They just wanted advertising, but that's not the way that it works on this channel. I actually want to see if their products are decent. This manual is kind of the same for this watch. It just gives us operating instructions, doesn't tell us anything about the watch, although on the barcode label on this package on the right, it did say scratch-proof sapphire. So let me see, did it? No, it said scratch-proof. So I'm assuming that that is sapphire because that's what the original Star Kings I reviewed said. So yeah, let's take a look. Now guys, I should mention, because this is an unboxing, both of these watches came with branded microfibers, and believe me, I love it when these watchmakers throw in microfibers, because when you're taking pictures or filming these watches, really does help when you're cleaning off the crystals. All right, let's take a look at the watches. All right, so after a long battle with all that plastic, we removed it from the first one, but we still have another one to unpackage there. Man, a whole lot of very tight plastic on this watch, and the arrows on the back did not correspond to how you are usually supposed to remove the plastic, so it was kind of confusing how they were put there, and the orientation was not telling me which way to punch out the links for the bracelet, because those are stamped on the actual links the opposite way. So yeah, that was a bit of a struggle there, but let's see if it goes any smoother on the next one. All right, happy to say much less of a struggle with this one. There was actually like less plastic on it, so that was perfect. Let's get into the review. We'll compare these and we'll see if they're functioning properly. So we're really going to focus on the second hands with these watches. Let's take a look. Okay, so looking at these two watches side by side, first impressions, this day date here looks a bit bigger than this simple date. There also seems to be a bit more detailing on this day date, as we can see kind of a textured pattern around the chapter ring, and it looks like there are even some little gemstones on the 9, 6, 3, and even 12 o'clock index. I don't know if I'm into that. I'm not really. I think the only gemstones I really like on watches would be like the sapphire on the crown of like a Cartier. So far, you know, they look very clean. That was the first thing that really impressed me about this company when I first learned about them. And I was reviewing, I went through a phase where I wanted to try to find the cheaper watches on Amazon and review them. And I just kind of found Star King on a whim because they were very inexpensive. And yeah, the first thing that really stood out to me is that they have very clean looking watches, like no debris under the dials. Everything is finished pretty impressively for the price that you will get these watches. Again, well under $100 for these Star King watches. And yeah, these look no different, you know, from this distance. We're gonna throw on the macro lens and really scrutinize them. But yeah, for my naked eye, this day date looks a bit bigger than this date. I think I like the texture and the detail on the day date more than this date, but I could do without the gemstones. This has a more interesting bracelet. The date, we can see dual finishing on the links. This is more of like an perhaps oyster bracelet, we would call it, and it's all one single type of finish. So, let's not fall off the desk there. Let's go ahead and kind of look at these close up with the macro lens, yeah? All right, guys, so as we pay attention to the second hand ticking away, I actually did some internet cyber sleuthing and found some information about these two watches. This one here in front of us, this day date, is the Star King AM0270, coming in at $74.99 on Amazon at the time of filming. It actually has 4.5 stars, and there seems to be a few different variants. There's one that's like a two-tone with a silver face. There's one with, again, black. And then there's one that has, let's see, what is the difference with this one? Okay, there's two that are just black dial, and then there's one with a silver dial. Interesting. Now, it says this has a stainless steel case, sapphire crystal, and a 50-meter water resistance rating according to Amazon. All right, good to know. So again, we'll throw it up on screen. AM0270 coming in well under $100, well under $100 at $74.99. So okay, we know the reference numbers now, and we have a bit of information, but let's go ahead and pay attention to the second hand. So far, so good. Definitely does not look high beat. Probably 21,600 BPH movement. Again, the Amazon listings don't say anything about the movements, and I'm going to test the crown setting and function, and we're going to see if it hacks and hand winds. But with that second Star King we took a look at on this channel, the second hand did a little bit of like a jump and skip, and that was kind of freaky. So far, so good though. So maybe that was just a one-off, like Star King said. Some kids outside playing, so I don't know if you can hear that on the mic, but it's been raining here in Los Angeles. So this is like the first nice day of this week, and so there's some kids playing. All right, so it did a full cycle, that second hand, and it did not skip a beat. Very, very good. All right, let's actually throw the other one up here and see if that also passes just the test. All right, guys, here is the date version. And again, I'm a pretty good gauge of this by now. This does look to have a bit of a smaller case diameter, but we're gonna measure these in a little bit. According to Amazon, this one is the Star King AM0184 date. It also has a sapphire crystal and a stainless steel case and a 50-meter water resistance rating, so similar specs. Similar specs to the other one, excuse me. What I'm interested in is that there are 148 reviews with 4 stars. So not a whole lot of people to sample from, but from that sampling, seems like people are enjoying it for the most part. And again, well under $100 coming in at $62.99. So does this pass the test though? While I was blabbering on, maybe you guys noticed something I didn't. So let's pay attention to that second hand and see if it does that crazy jump, skip. I hope not. Because again, if these do work the way Star King assured me they would, they pushed back a little bit with my other review. They were like, hold on, don't write us off just yet. That was just a one-off. We do good work and we stand by our watches. We want you to take a look at 2 more. And guys, that really does show guts, because with me like scrutinizing a watch and exposing something that was wrong, for them to want to send me 2 more of their products, knowing that I'm going to be like watching it with like microscopic X-ray vision to make sure everything is working well. Yeah, they really are literally putting their money where their mouth is. Man, so far it's looking like that one Star King was perhaps a one-off, because this has done a full cycle and I'm not seeing a hop, skip, or a jump. Man, that makes me very, very happy. All right, guys, so let's get up close and kind of talk about the design, yeah? All right, guys, so as we look at the 6 o'clock index, we can see those little gemstones that I was talking about earlier. And normally where it would say, you know, Swiss made, it does say sapphire crystal. I didn't see that initially with my naked eye, but here with the macro lens, we can see that. We're gonna hone in a moment to the font above this index. You can kind of see it, but it's not totally in focus, so let's get up close there. So sure enough, there is a bit more text on the dial. Personally, I think there's a bit more text than there has to be. This is not a dive watch that needs to say the water resistance rating and on all of that. You know, one of the main complaints I hear from my viewers is that sports watches have like paragraphs of text on the dial. This is kind of more of a sporty, dressy, everyday piece. It really does not need to say the water resistance rating and water resistant and automatic. I'd be fine just with a simple automatic. I also think that the sapphire crystal down by the 6 o'clock index, also kind of unnecessary, but not totally off-putting. Again, even this automatic water resistant 50 meters, it's not totally off-putting. I just don't think it necessarily has to be there. But I'd love to hear what you think. As we take a look at the textured pattern going around the indexes, it actually looks quite nice. Again, pristine from what I can see in this shot, and a whole lot of detail for the price that you're paying. So, pretty impressive, but there's a complication I want to take a look at. That's right, a date complication. Nicely bordered, everything seems to be centered. Now, we haven't tested the crown setting and function yet, so we are going to see how that cycles. But so far, it really does look prim and proper. We can see that border is nice and mirrored, polished, so we can see a nice reflection as the second hand glides over it. Again, we see a nice textured pattern around those sharp indexes, and we see a gemstone and a really nice kind of oversized crown there. There is also a bit of texturing, almost like serrations around the bezel, although again, this is not a rotating bezel. There's no real function to that. It's just a little bit of a style design choice. Okie dokie. So guys, we have to talk about the logo, of course, because that's one of the bigger debates whenever we do these Microbrand Mondays. And it makes sense. You gotta like what you see on the dial of your watch, and if the logo is terrible, then you're not gonna want to wear it, right? So I think they probably could have gotten away with just using that Star King emblem instead of having the emblem and the Star King font. But I don't think it's totally oversized. I don't think it's taking up a ton of real estate on the dial. I think it's just fine. But when we consider all the other text over by the 6 o'clock index, I think they probably should have just stuck with the emblem and not the Star King font. But again, chime in the comment section. Let me know what you think. We can also see a very nice reflection coming from the handset. So yeah, there's one more thing I want to talk about when we're looking at the dial of this watch. So you'll notice this watch is playing with the light very, very nicely. The handset looks nice and sharp. Surprising amount of finishing here, especially again for the price you're paying, but there's no lume. There's no lume anywhere on this watch, so we're not going to be doing a lume test with this one, and that's perfectly fine. It's just something, you know, I'm reviewing the watch, figured I'd bring it up. So if you're looking for a very versatile, sporty piece that you can see in low light situations, this is probably not the watch for you. All right, let's take a look at the crown setting and function. All right, guys, so as I've stated multiple times in this episode, this is a date. So let's check that crown setting and function. First position. Second position, we can see the second hand has stopped, which is a very good sign for those of you who value the hacking ability. So looks like this watch does hack. Let's push the crown all the way in. Oh yeah, definite resistance. I can feel that it is winding. Very, very nice. Two very tactile crown settings, so I love that. I hate when it's kind of, it's hard to distinguish where you are in the crown position. All right, first position, let's see. All right. Yes, it is cycling perfectly. Everything is nicely centered. Man, this is making me reconsider Star King, guys, as a hyper affordable option. You are getting hacking, hand wind, some very decent finishing, but let's take a look at the case back. Yep, still retains that Star King logo, just like the other ones we took a look at. All right, let's get up close. All right, guys, well, looky there. It does not take a rocket scientist to recognize this movement. This is a Seiko Instruments NH35 variant. Nope, 36. And you can see right there on the left side of the rotor, it's actually engraved NH36. But you see one of these, you've seen them all. Sticks out kind of like a sore thumb at this point, especially, you know, with the hyper prevalence of these Seiko Instruments NH35s, NH36s. Yeah, guys, I mean, workhorse movement. We've seen it so many times. It's actually pretty welcome to see a Seiko Instruments movement in a watch from a watchmaker that we're not very familiar with. So, yeah, we can't really say this is a no-name movement, can we? In fact, on the right side of that rotor, it says SII. So we do know this is a Seiko Instruments movement. And again, no real decoration outside of that very, very nice centered Star King emblem over by the middle of the movement. And you're getting a little bit of reflection there. Yeah, looks great. No like sediment or anything in the case back. I know I've had movements that have just looked thrashed and mangled on this channel. We've taken a look at movements that have had screw heads that are just destroyed. I know Federico was talking to me once, and he told me that he did a review and the movement had a thumbprint on it from some micro brands. So it's like, yeah, things can definitely go wrong, but with this watch, looks perfectly fine. All right, let's move on to the other Star King. Yeah, let's see if it also passes these tests. All right, guys, so as we take a look at this Star King date, we can see I don't really need to spend as much time because there's not as much to look at. And guess what? That's a very good thing, right? Doesn't have those gemstones, doesn't have a ton of text on the dial, doesn't have that texturing. Just a simple, maybe sporty, definitely dressy everyday piece. Again, if you took it off this bracelet, you could definitely throw it on some leather and wear it as a dress watch. But simplicity is key sometimes, guys. And yeah, very, very sharp handset, sharp indexes, clean matte black dial. The one complaint I would have about this watch is that the date complication is not bordered. The day date had a very nice polished border. I think it just looks that much more detailed when you put a simple border around the date, especially with a watch like this. Now, you'll see, doesn't have that sapphire crystal signage, doesn't have any, water resistance rating, just has automatic. And I think that this is pulling off the Star King emblem and font even better than that day date variant. We can see a very nicely signed crystal with that Star King emblem. No dual finishing to speak of on the case, but definite dual finishing on the bracelet links. What I will say is it's a thumbprint magnet. So that's something to take into consideration whenever you're playing with a polished piece. But yeah, this looks pretty sharp, very, very simple. Again, the second hand is not jumping or skipping, but let's take a look at the crown setting and function. All right, different crown, not oversized. First position. Second position, the second hand has stopped, so this also hacks. Let's push it back in. All right, definite resistance there. This also hand winds. So we're getting comparable specs as far as functionality, excluding that day because this is only a date. Let's flip the watch over. Actually, you know what? Let's see if it cycles properly. Well, that's the wrong position. Hold on. All right, we are in the first position. Everything looks nice and centered. Sorry guys, I'm kind of holding you out of focus a bit because I'm paying attention to the crown. Yeah, everything looks pretty like straight and true. The only thing that I think would make it look even better is if it was bordered. But I want to take a look at that movement. All right, dudes and dudettes, this does not have any indication of what the movement would be. This does not say Seiko Instruments, does not say NH anything. We are seeing similar properties when it comes to, you know, the finishing. No real finishing to speak of, aside from this watch actually having some blue screw heads in the movement. And then of course you are getting that Star King logo. So although this may not be a Seiko Instruments movement, I actually think this kind of is more of a handsome presentation than the other one. But yeah, nothing really crazy back here. No mangled screw heads. Everything looks pretty nice. But yeah, let's measure them, throw them on the wrist, and then I'll give you my conclusion. Because again, no loom test, guys. There's no loom on this one to speak of at all as well. So yeah, let's measure them. All right, staying with the date because it was right here in front of us. Let's go ahead, break out the digital calipers, and check the dimensions. 40 millimeters on the button, guys. Let's check out the lug to lug because that's more important. 48 millimeter lug to lug. Check the thickness. 11.3 millimeters thick. Not too shabby. All right, let's take a look at the day date. 41.7. So I wasn't going crazy. This is just a smidgen bigger than that date. 47.2 millimeter lug to lug. So the lug to lug on this one, I believe, is actually smaller than the date. 11.7. So comparable thickness. Let me make sure that I'm not going crazy actually. 48. Yeah, so this day date does have a little bit bigger case diameter than the date, but it has a smaller lug to lug than the date. Very interesting. All right, let's put them on the wrist. All right, dudes and dudettes, here is the day date on my 7.5-inch wrist. Guys, I thought it would wear larger on the wrist, but honestly, pretty versatile sizing. I think that if you have wrists larger than mine, you could definitely pull this off. But if you have wrists smaller than mine, this wouldn't be gargantuan. You can see the lugs aren't totally encompassing my wrists. Nothing's like hanging off the sides of my wrists. Yeah, definitely not a cumbersome watch. Lays pretty flat on the wrist. Again, what was it, 11 millimeters thick. So definitely not cumbersome. And yeah, looks fine on my 7.5-inch wrist. Again, I would probably personally wear this watch if it didn't have those gemstones. If we removed those gemstones, this could be definitely a sporty, elegant, everyday piece. But, you know, some of you out there might love that. So leave me a comment in the comment section. What do you think about that design choice? Okay, so now to something a bit more my speed. We can see this does not have those gemstones. This is just a very simple, kind of sporty, elegant date watch. Okay, so we have a date complication. Again, I would love to see a border on that, but not a ton of text on the dial. Just very, very simple, sharp where it has to be, plays with the light, no loom. So again, that could be a downside if you're looking for that. But it's kind of everything you need and nothing you don't. You're getting hacking, hand wind, you're getting a simple date complication, some really decent finishing for the price you pay. Again, just above $62. Kind of insane. I would probably throw this on a leather strap instead of the bracelet, although the bracelet, you know, just fine with that dual finishing. But I'd love to hear what you think about the two of these watches. Now, what's interesting is that I thought the lug to lug would be an issue with this watch. Because again, I measured it larger than the day date, but just fine. In fact, this wears much smaller on the wrist. So again, if you have smaller than a 7.5-inch wrist, this will be perfect for you. In fact, I'll go as far as to say that between the two of these, if you do have a smaller wrist, this one would be the one to go with. But let's put them side by side for one last time, and I'll tell you what I think about these two watches. All right, guys, so after spending another afternoon with these Star King watches, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I am reconsidering recommending Star King as a hyper affordable entry-level option into the watch collecting world. It's true, that second Star King we took a look at on this channel did have a big problem with the movement. But again, there's a lot of variables. It could have been handled roughly in transit. It could have just been a true defect, and no company is impervious to that. Okay, it's going to happen regardless of the price range. Now, it's really impressive that Star King wanted to, again, put their money where their mouth is and get their watches in front of me once again, because they do stand behind their products. Language barrier aside, I did figure out, which watch reference numbers these were. If we take them at their word, these do have sapphire crystals. And yes, of course, I assume the cases are stainless steel, no precious metals here. Here's where I think I'm very impressed, okay, with Star King, and here's why I was initially impressed the first time I learned about Star King and reviewed them. For both of these watches, okay, at the time of filming, which is actually the day before you're going to see this episode because we were a bit behind on the filming schedule this week, $137.98 for both of these combined, okay? So if you wanted to get perhaps, the two-tone silver dial version of this day date and then maintain, or I should say keep with the black dial variant of the date, then you would have two different looking watches with different complications that you could wear in different scenarios for less than $200. That's very impressive. Again, I'm going to, consider Star King as a very good entry into the hyper affordable world of watch collecting. Yeah, I'm very happy that they chose to, stick to their guns and send me these watches. I really do appreciate them sponsoring this episode. We can't do this Microbrand Monday segment without the support of these businesses. I want to thank my channel members. I want to thank you, the viewers. Let me know what you think about Star King, and let me know if you guys own any Star King watches. I'll leave their links in the description below so you can learn more about these watches. You'll be supporting me when you use the links, and I really do appreciate it, guys. All right. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay blessed. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller, and always remember, I didn't invent time. I just tell it.